I'm Travis Brown, founder and CEO of Mojo Up Marketing and Media, and this is my podcast where I talk to the most successful Black and brown business executives who've broken through the barriers of today's business culture. Welcome to Mojo Up Live. I'm Travis Brown. I am your host, and we always have incredible guests on our show, and today is like no other because I got Jimmie McMillian, who is an attorney by background, or maybe recovering, but and today he is an influencer at the Speedway doing some big things, and so I'm super excited to have him on our show today. Please welcome Jimmie McMillian.
Thank you, Travis. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So let's start off talking about, I've heard you speak a couple of times, and you always talk about how much you love your job and how every day is amazing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I came to the Speedway on May 2nd of 2016, have not had a bad second since that day, was hired in as the senior corporate counsel for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, NTT IndyCar Series, and IMS Productions. And then after Roger Penske bought the track in 2020 and the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, Roger and Mark gave me a call and said, we need to do something to impactful in motorsports, and called me up and said, we need to put together a plan. I said, how long do we have? They said about 4 hours. We sat around a table, and believe it or not, we put together the Race for Equality and Change, which is our diversity initiative. And then I said, hey, you need to have somebody to run this thing. And they said, well, what do you think you're here for? And I said, no, I went to law school. I did not go to school to become a chief diversity officer. And I have my own skeptical mindset about diversity and how whether companies are really committed to it long term, and they and Roger and Mark convinced me that they were committed to it, and then somehow I ended up with 2 full-time jobs. So I'm not a recovering lawyer yet. I'm actually still a full-time lawyer for the track and the series, and also the chief diversity officer, and both of them are absolutely fantastic. I still have not had a bad second at work since. It's absolutely spectacular working with everyone that I work with and having the support of Roger and our entire team.
We're going to dive into some of that role and some of the work you're doing in diversity, but I want to back up because I'm always interested in the story of how you got here. And I've heard a little bit of this story, but it wasn't the easiest road to get to where you are today. Unpack a little bit of that for us, because I think that's super powerful for people to hear the journey that got you to the place and the position that most people admire.
Absolutely. Born on the south side of Chicago, area called the Wild Hundreds, an area where 2 gangster disciples, vice lords, and my mother was a school teacher for Chicago public schools for special education students with special needs for 36 years. My father didn't work, had an alcohol problem, and every year we would be on the run, literally sometimes with just our underwear on or the clothes on our back, trying to run in Mississippi, trying to get away, and then my mother would come back. And so my mother used to talk to me about education being the key to getting out. When I was 15 years old, drive-by shooting, my best friend was shot in the head. And my mother said, hey, you can graduate and go to college early. So I actually went to college at 16 at Michigan State and was doing well, but still under this auspices of you got to do well in school, otherwise you got to come home. My father tried to shoot me in the dorm. And so I hid out in Detroit, and it was during that time my stepbrother, who was at IU Bloomington, came and got me with the clothes on my back, brought me up to IU, enrolled me, and 3 months later my father shot my mother with over a remote control. He shot her 3 times. And so from there I actually flunked out of school, and I worked at odds and end jobs at Best Buy, and then eventually at Firestone, which in a weird way is why I'm at the Speedway now. And while I was there, those guys down there used to tease me about not knowing anything about racing. So they brought me to my first race in my first Brickyard 400 NASCAR race. And from the minute those cars cranked up, I fell in love with it. And I saw the South would rise again, and I saw the Confederate flags. But these guys, and they were white, were very protective of me and wanted me to share their cultural experience. And just became a casual fan, ended up getting back in school, taking independent study classes, got A's and B's, got back in school, got A's and B's, got A's my final year at IU, still only had a 2.4 GPA. Told folks I wanted to go to law school. They said, well, we don't know if you're going to get in. We don't think you're going to make it. It's great what you've done. And I said, I didn't really ask you. And so I applied to 9 law schools, got accepted to 7. and went to law
With a 2 point what?
with a 2.4 GPA and a 168 on the LSAT. So I blew the LSAT out the water. And, it's the story that is this case for a lot of young people of color. It's not that they don't have the education or the ability. It's all of the external factors that are going on in their life that holds them back. I like to call it hood shit. And that hood shit can be stifling and can sometimes mask and shield and hide the rose that grew from the concrete, and that was my case. And so once I got to law school, I balled out, and I did phenomenal. I ended up graduating and clerking for the Indiana Supreme Court and Justice Frank Sullivan, who became like a father to me. Did that for 2 years, and then went on to Barnes & Thornburg, which is one of the largest law firms in the country, and was there for 12 years, became a partner at Barnes in the litigation department, litigating a number of complex matters, and then woke up one day and said, hey, I want to merge my passion with my profession. I'm the president of the largest motorcycle club in the state, 317 Riders MC. I had developed a relationship with the track and came on over and became senior corporate counsel. And it's been an amazing journey from where I was. I always tell people it's hard to picture me where I'm not at now, but where I was at when I started and where I was at when I flunked out of school. And so many people could have written me off and gave me opportunities and let me get an opportunity to try and demonstrate who I can be and what I can do. And for that, I'm grateful. And it shapes who I am today and my commitment and passion to mentoring and my passion for helping people and developing people and encouraging people, because I was once that person.
It's interesting that, your journey and through school and what happens to so many people when they leave school in that environment, they never get back. And there's a difference between getting back and going your route, or I quit. I chose to quit school and never went back and don't have a degree at this point in time. And I had to go through another crazy path to hustle, to grind, to prove yourself and your worth. Let me ask you this. When you were going back, like, what was the mindset at that point in time? Because there had to be a lot of people like, you can't, you shouldn't, you won't, like there had to be a lot of that mindset.
Absolutely. The biggest thing that went through my mind was unfinished business. And wanting to prove to myself more than anything that I could finish. I'd pledged my fraternity Kappa Alpha Psi, and every year folks would celebrate their graduations and I was out of school. And there's this concept of achievement that gets kind of buried and burned in your heart when you pledge a fraternity. All of the fraternities have different mottos, but ours was achievement. And to still be a Kappa, wearing the colors and wearing our letters, but have not graduated, it literally did something to me every day where I said, look, in order to represent this organization and to represent the spirit of my founders, a lot of us is not having any kind of historical tie. People underestimate the continued impact of slavery, of taking a group of people and killing their history and taking them from a sense of self. And in so many ways, we've had to create those things in other entities and other avenues. And for me, Kappa Alpha Psi was that. It was another entity and avenue of historical significance where I said, these black men that I have affiliated myself with, have come to stand for greatness and have come to stand for academic education and excellence. And if I want to continue to run around and say, hey, I'm a noob, I'm a Kappa, I need to understand that that's what they were about. They were about achievement, and I want to be about that too. Well, that was what drew me back and said to me, hey, you have something bigger to stand for. You have something bigger to represent. And the last thing you want to do is be a Kappa that has failed. And that was the motivator for me. I find a lot of folks don't have that external motivation. The other thing I'll point out is I also had help. And it's been a motto of mine. I think you've heard me speak about it. There are people who don't have a safety net. They don't have help. They're not poor because they're alcoholics or they're drug addicts or they have mental illness. They're poor because they try as hard as they can, but $14 and $15 an hour is not a lot of money. And if they don't have any other support systems, no one to watch their kids, nobody to loan them money, nobody to help them when their car breaks down, nobody, just the most basic things that happens to all of us, no matter who we are. Yep. If they don't have help at pivotal moments, they're done. I had help. I had folks who could still reach out and help me get back in school or help help me figure out different things, or give me advice about where to even go to talk to people about getting financial aid, or righting certain wrongs that I had done, or making certain mistakes where I had people, even in my darkest moments, I had people who could help me. There are so many folks out there who do not.
I think that's so powerful, and you're hitting on something that, yes, there's a lot of groups out there that try to do mentorship, and I love and support that. But when it comes down to it, it's like, who do you have in your darkest moments, your worst of worst, that looks at you and says, get your ass up, go. I'm here. I'm supporting you. I will do this for you. I will be there for you. And I think that does go so unnoticed in culture as a whole, but especially in the Black culture. And then you layer on top some people going, it's weakness to ask for help. It's weakness, perception-wise, to allow somebody to help me through tough times. And today, we're talking about mental health like we've never talked about it before. And I've been public about me seeking counseling, and my wife and I going through that process and what that's been done. Are there things that you've done in this journey? Because I think people would put you on a trauma chart and say a lot of trauma. Things that you've done personally to mentally, be able to deal with that stuff, but be in your right mind today, moving forward. Is there things that you've done that's helped you?
Oh, absolutely. One is ride motorcycles. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, when you're riding a motorcycle worried about dying, then you're not worried about a lot of other stuff. And so, having that, I say it jokingly, but it's true. Yeah. It's not just a motorcycle, but it's also becoming a member of the motorcycle club gave me a different perspective. I hang in a bunch of different worlds, and it gives me an appreciation, for one world when I'm in the other world. It gives me a more well-rounded view of what life is like. I also, about 2 years ago, I was about 268 pounds. And I never thought I would lose weight. I had been big for quite some time. And I sat down with my CEO, and he told me about this program, which was basically keto light. And he said, you'll lose weight. I said, I went home, talked to my wife, tried it. My wife lost 50 pounds, and I lost 75 pounds in the course of 8 months. I never thought in my life I would lose it. And it has been transformative to me. I work out every day at 5 a.m. I'm in the gym on my own sometimes, most of the time. And it's something that gives me that time by myself where I'm energized and I'm positive. I have a board of directors by urging of one of my mentors. I have about 12 set people who know they're my mentors, who I meet with and talk to routinely. And I have a 1-page plan, 5 things that I want to accomplish in the next 3 years, and then like little initiatives that I need to do. I talk to my board about them as if I'm a CEO of a company. Sometimes I take things off, sometimes I put things on. I have one for me, and my wife and I have one sheet of paper for the two of us. And we've been transitioning through that and had different plans since we met. And it's been helpful just to give some level of parameter of, this is the area that we're going in, this is the direction I'm going in, but also to sit down with my mentors to say, this is what I'm trying to get done. And if they can't help me, they can direct me to resources to where I can be helped. They also can hold me accountable and say, you haven't done anything on this one. We've been sitting out here talking about this for 2-3 years, and we take it off. And then we figure out, okay, well, what are you working on? Because this is just dead space if you just keep talking about it and you're not doing anything about it. What I've also done is take that, we call it strategic life plan, and I share it with my mentees. So my mentees give me their plan, and I give them my plan, and over lunch and over breakfast, we sit and chop it up about our different plans and strategies. And it gives them some sense that I'm a human being. I'm not some superhero out here. I'm still fighting and struggling with some of the same demons and monsters and problems, and I have ups and downs, and sometimes the money's good, sometimes the money's not good, but it humanizes your future. And I see that in my mentees, but I also see it in my mentors. So all of those things are things you have to deal with, and as you mature, and certainly when you have kids, you start to realize what you're really, you start to realize what you're here for, your legacy. What do you want to leave behind? What do you want people to say, particularly to your kids? That's what a driving factor to me is. What will people say to my sons and my grandsons when I'm not here anymore? Will they say, hey, Jimmie McMillian, he tried to help everybody. Everybody. He helped me get a job. He helped me when I got fired. Even things like supporting people for their campaigns. I hear people say they support all the time. You'd be surprised how many African Americans and Latinos run for office and don't get any financial support from even their closest friends. Not $25, not $10, not $50. This morning, literally, I'm combing through all my mentees that are running for office, and I'm making donations. And I'm not making $500, $600 donations, but I'm giving. I'm making sure they all know I see you, I support your effort, and I'm going to give. It's that, and it's a lot. And, I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of responsibility, but every day of my life looks beautiful. And it looks awesome.
And let me jump in and say that, because it looks beautiful because you've decided the way that you see the world and the way that you see things, that you're looking through the lens and you want it to see. I mean, I'm not saying it's not that way. I'm saying, but so many other people are seeing some of the same shit you're seeing, but they don't perceive it that way.
Yeah, but I mean, there's another thing I did. I made a decision to leave bars, and I walked away from $100,000. I took a $100,000 pay cut to leave bars. And I've been divorced twice. Been married 3 times, divorced twice. There are choices. Some people will come to you and they will tell you the same story with the same problem in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. They complaining about the same wife. They complaining about the same job. And they will act like they're stuck in a place that is really bad. And you as your friend or their mentor or whatever are trying to help them and show them and guide them. But it seems like they just want to be in the same place. Sometimes you can craft your own freedom by saying, let me let go of what doesn't matter. Let me let go. If this is not bringing you happiness, because, one of the things about riding motorcycles is I really realized that life is fleeting. I've had people die on rides with me. That's an eye-opening experience when you're having a beautiful day like today is, and everything is shining and bright, and this person that you done rode with for 2-3 years all of a sudden is in the side of the mountain and they dead. And you got to tell their kids and their family. And then you go home and you wake up in the morning and you're like, hey, that could have been me. Time is not promised to anyone. And if you are spending that time in a miserable and sad and horrible place, and it is making you stagnant, you have to internally figure out how to rip the chains off and say, let me get to a happier place. Some people believe that there's nobody happy. They just believe that's life. If you make a lot of money, then you got to be miserable. If I'm gonna be married, nobody's marriage is good. It all sucks. If you're a parent, your kids hate you, and that's sad. So I sit here to say, Travis, that is totally not my life. When I am not pretend, makeup, talk to anybody, I have a outstanding, terrific life. But I decided what really matters and what doesn't. And I could be making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 more than what I make right now. But I know that there's a price to be paid.
And I love just the lens that you see things through. And I tell you, when I heard you speak in one of the first conversations we've had, and I heard you speak and say it, and even today, just talking about how you love every day and every experience. And I think that's so important to people making decisions to love where they are, love what they do, or go find something else to love what you do. That's why I never want to ever hold people captive at our company. Like, if you don't want to be here, listen, there are so many other things you can do, right? Go do it, and I will cheerlead you on the way. Let me jump to the Speedway, because it's just interesting to think about maybe an industry, a sport that hasn't been that conducive historically to Black and brown people, but you're so passionate about this particular topic. Why?
It's fun. I don't know why anybody thinks that people, Black and brown people, don't like cars and going fast. They must not hang around with the same friends I hang around.
But no, it's not that they don't like cars and fast, but they don't show up at the Speedway as much, or historically they haven't.
Well, they weren't invited. I mean, the truth is they weren't. We go where we're wanted and where we're invited, and where there's things that appeal to us and that are culturally appealing to us. And the truth is, we weren't invited. And since we weren't invited, we didn't go. And that's the truth. But the ideal and the concept that you don't get excited about. Of course you get excited about. Look at drag racing. Drag racing forever. If you go to any drag strip in any community, there was this run what you brung concept where if you had a car on Wednesday nights, in fact, it happens here. Wednesday nights, you go to the track, you pay your $15, and you could take some runs up and down the track. as the higher the levels of racing got up, even NASCAR started to transition and become more corporate. The outreach to certain fans became more corporate. As the costs went up, as you started getting away from RVs, it became more of an isolated sport. And I think now they've realized that's not financially sustainable.
Right.
It's not smart. Also, the world is becoming more diverse. And there, in 30 years, I don't know if we'll know what a white American is just by virtue of reproduction. And that's shocking and probably scary to a lot of people,
Right.
But it is the truth. We have got to diversify with the times. And one of the great things that I've been able to witness as part of our Race for Equality to Change is being able to invite, this year we invited over 10,000 diverse fans who had never been to the track before. 500, we had like 4,000 new fans at the track who had never been to inside the track at all. To have them come to me literally shaking with tears in their eyes saying, I've lived in this community for 45 years and 50 years. I've heard the sound of this track since I was a kid. I've heard the cars. I never thought that I would come in here. My parents told me not to come. And now I can't believe that I spent 40 years missing this. My kids loved it. I loved it. And I've been missing this for all this time.
But you said something very key, because we weren't invited. And you doing something different where if I go and invite people to show up, it is amazing how many people will show up and deal with what they thought it was, how the perception was, how other people had been experienced when they went there versus in 2022 or 2023, how they can actually experience it differently.
And we got to get real because, at an executive level, the Holman family and others will say, well, what do you mean we didn't invite black and brown people to the track? We put the website was up, the tickets were for sale, the commercials were playing. We didn't tell anybody in recent years that was black and brown not to come to the race, other than, maybe our fans would walk around with South will Rise Again shirts, but we didn't. They got a point. Because this happens universally. It happens in education. It happens in companies and businesses where they say, what do you mean we weren't welcoming? And I say, unfortunately, we are, think about, and people want to say we're whining, but we're not. Think about historically when folks put on water fountains, whites only, colored only. There was a point in time, a significant point in time, where as a person of color, you had to know your place. You didn't go places that weren't your place. There were black beaches and white beaches, black pools in this city. There are black neighborhoods and white neighborhoods. You couldn't just buy a home. If you don't understand what I'm saying, watch the movie The Raisin with the Sun. And so over time, even in colleges and universities now, you look at a flyer and you say, is this a career fair or is this a diversity career fair? Is this a party or is this a black party? And so it's not enough just to put your tickets on sale without some intentional effort beyond that to say, these tickets are on sale, but they're on sale for you, person of color. That could be making sure that the ad is bilingual. Now, all of a sudden, even though you've had Hispanic and Latino drivers, but when you let those drivers display their cultural heritage and speak to me in their native language, now you're saying, oh, you're talking to me. You're not just talking to them. You're telling me that I'm welcome. Have an event in Harville. Pull the Indy car right in the middle of Riverside and then tell me you want me there. Those are the things that I think we're now changing and why you see some of the diversity that you see.
Does a Michael Jordan jumping in the sport and doing it in ownership? Does a Bubba Wallace? I mean, obviously there's been historical other drivers and some other people that try to own teams. Is that an impact in the change?
It helps. We started Force Indy, which is all black race team. Started with Miles Rowe as the driver and Rod Reed, who was the founder of a program called NXG Youth Motorsports, which for 18 years has provided STEM education along with an opportunity to learn how to race and compete in go-karts at the track. Rod was the owner and operator of that team, still is involved with the team. And then Miles was his first driver. They became the first black owner and driver and engineers to win an IndyCar sanctioned event in USF 2000 in 2021 in New Jersey. Last year, Miles, in only his second year of competition, came in second in USF 2000, and he'll be racing again in USF 2000 Pro this year. We brought in Ernie Francis, who also races for Force Indy. He races in Indy Lights. Haitian American brother with a phenomenal resume who had a great season in Indy Lights last year and will be coming back again this year. Roger has stated publicly that he wants an African American in the 2024 Indy 500. But I will say this, Lewis Hamilton, who some may not know, is a 7-time world champion of F1. He is black and he's from Great Britain. He is down, phenomenal. He actually had a commission done on the lack of people of color in F1, particularly in the engineering space. And it's a report, if you haven't read it, it's actually great. It's a Hamilton report. It talks about the same issues I think are challenging. He said his presence in the sport has not done anything in the sport, despite him being the highest paid athlete in the world and probably one of the most decorated champions in the world. When he walks into the Mercedes paddock for who he races for, it's all white. We've got to work on diversity around the edges. On Indy 500 race day, there's only 33 cars, but there are tons of engineers, people in marketing, like yourself, people in guest services, lawyers, HR, logistics, operations, transportation. All of these other aspects of the things that we're focused on at the Race for Equality and Change. It's one of the reasons we started a diverse leadership in motorsports program, where we offer students of color a paid internship to come in during the summer, work, but also be engaged with the Colts, the Pacers, the Indians, NCAA, Lucas Oil Stadium for full days, so they can create a pipeline into motorsports, not just through the driver, but through everything around the driver. And, shout out to brother Max Siegel, who has done that at a high level at NASCAR with NASCAR's Drive for Diversity program, his Rev Racing program, and his program to basically help take athletes and convert their skill level over so that they can now serve in pit crews throughout NASCAR. He was really the pioneer. He's my mentor, and he's just phenomenal. But we're trying to live in his wake and create our own in IndyCar.
Man, that's phenomenal. And I love that, Roger Pinsky, who he is, the influence that he comes with. He buys a Speedway, and now you're in this situation. Where's Roger at in this, and what have you learned from Roger Pinsky? He's
active. He's extremely active. He's present. He will call you frequently, and he's very aware, and he's very engaged. What I've learned from him, some interesting lessons. He doesn't operate off of the traditional strategic plan. He wants his employees to be nimble and able to react to change. And while that can be frustrating to some, it's exciting in other ways because it means he's always open to hear and listen to ideas as they come about. He also has a number of resources that you can't argue with, and his ability to utilize those resources in places that he thinks are worthwhile has certainly made my journey in diversity a lot different than others. I'm the first person to say you cannot even begin to have a conversation about diversity unless you have a budget, unless you have some form of money and resources to put behind it. You're not going to get out of anything, and it's not valuable to you. You value what you spend money on and what you allocate resources to. And so watching him do that has been significant, and just being able to see how he values people. I feel valued. The people that he brings in, he has 68,000 employees. There's 235 of us at the Speedway full time. I bet you he knows 60 to 65% of us on site. Wow. Knows you by name and may know your spouse. I mean, it's just amazing. And that attention to detail about people is inspiring.
Well, Jimmy, I got one tough question for you left, but before we do that, I got a thing called the hot seat.
Okay.
Where I'm gonna throw you some questions, and you're just gonna give me some 1 or 2 word answers, how you feel about some of these things. So,
okay.
Easy stuff though. Favorite place of vacation?
Gatlinburg.
Coolest city you've been to?
Jamaica.
Favorite restaurant?
La Bamba.
And then I'm gonna add this because I know you. Favorite breakfast spot in Speedway?
Charlie Brown's.
Favorite brand?
Nike.
Sports team.
Colts, first thing that came to mind, which is painful.
Favorite college.
Indiana University.
Favorite race.
Indy 500.
Favorite TV show.
Twilight Zone.
And one of your favorite movies.
Braveheart.
All right. Favorite book.
Soul on Ice.
Favorite type of music.
Rap.
From what era?
Today.
Interesting.
Today.
What is one of your favorite race car teams?
Penske Racing.
That was set up, right? And then a nonprofit that you love to support.
Oh, Reach for Youth Inc.
What is it?
Reach for Youth Inc.
Okay.
So Reach for Youth is basically Pee Wee League for lawyers. It has the teen court. It runs the teen court program. Got involved in it when I first started law school and have been a donor and supporter of it ever since, and been served on the board and led the board and served as an advisor. But it's if kids, high school. So how you get into it actually is you get some people, they get into it because you get in trouble at school and you get arrested, and then you'll get sentenced as a condition of your sentence. You'll get sentenced to teen court. And then when you go to teen court, all of the lawyers are kids. Mm-hmm. The only adult is a judge. And then a lot of those kids are sentenced to be on the jury. And then once they're on the jury, they see what it's like to be a lawyer, and many of them join. And so probably 9 or 10 of the kids that were in the program when I was operating every day are now lawyers.
That's amazing.
And one of the kids, Leah Graves, she actually became an advisor to Barack Obama's deputy, Valerie Jarrett. She was an advisor to her. She used to be in the White House and used to call me while she was getting on the helicopter. And that was cool. And how she got in the program was she got in a fight over her mom at school and got kicked out of school. And she grew up, became a lawyer, and ended up working in the White House.
That's an amazing story. Last question here is, Jimmy, and you started to allude to this. I thought you were going to steal my question here earlier, but at some point in time, there's going to be a number on both sides of your dash. And your dash is what you've done, what you've accomplished, what you did while you were here. What is it that you want people to say about Jimmie McMillian?
I want people to say that Jimmie McMillian helped me. You know, he answered, he picked up the phone, he returned the email, that he helped me. That, for whatever reason, is my major motivation. And I think it's because so many people have helped me, but I also want it because I want people to help my kids. I want my sons to, if I can't give them $1 billion or $1 million, I want them to be able to walk into somebody's office and say, my name is Lance McMillian. And they say, your daddy, Jimmie McMillian, tic-tac? And I go, yeah, put your resume away. See, I see how this works. I see how it works locally. That's how a lot of people around here get jobs and opportunities. It's not because they're smarter or they're more talented or they went to some private school. It's because they have a different form of generational wealth. It's a relational wealth that's based on your dad helped this person's dad, went to church with this person, played ball with such and such. And just off of that alone, you get an opportunity and you get an in. I worked with a group of kids at a program called Stop the Violence last Saturday. Spent about 4 hours with them. They were awesome. And I had them introduce themselves, and my whole point, they were all young men, young black men, seniors in high school who had gotten in trouble and sent us to have to participate in this program. And I said, I want you to introduce yourself to me, and I want you to tell me who you are. Tell me everything that you could come up with about who you are. They gave me nicknames, mostly, or first names, what grade they were in school. Most of them didn't know what they wanted to be when they grew up, and none of them had really anything else to say. And I kept pushing them like, this is it. This is who you are. If you meet a girl, this is it. This is all you got.
This your pitch.
This is it. This is your pitch. Yeah. I said, first of all, none of you said your last name. Do you know what the importance of your last name is? And most of them said no. The ones who didn't say, I'm not really proud of my last name. Again, think about that. That means whatever your family accomplished, good or bad, you've tossed that aside as being as having no value. And all you got is what you got to create from scratch and ground up. We can't, as a race, continue every year to have new generations start from the ground up. I'm going to take our family from point one to wherever, and then if I don't, then my kids or whatever, they got to start all over again because I screwed up. You can't do that. They have no concept beyond who they are. I'm hoping that I leave something in my sons. I'll say to my sons now, when they have problems in math, so you do know you my son. We don't quit. We don't give up. We fight. And I'm hoping and praying and I'm leaving a legacy that not only I'm saying that, but people will say that to them, like, do you know who your dad is? You know who your dad was? Man, your dad was tough, cuz your dad did everything for everybody. And I'm hoping that's the legacy that I leave behind. And and I'm hoping it's genuine. I hope that there are people who look back on their career and their life and like, man, I'm glad I met Jimmie McMillian.
My man, every time we're together, whether it's eating breakfast, seeing you speak, hanging out, you're always dropping dimes and nuggets, and I appreciate your intensity, your authenticity, and the work that you're doing. Thank you for stopping by, my man. I really appreciate it. Let's give him a sign, let him close it out.
Oh, I love this. All right. Mojo Productions, we're out.
Awesome, man.